Welcome to the Matcha Guardians podcast, brought to you by Matcha.com. Here, we focus on the biggest trending health topics of our time, featuring the greatest and upcoming wellness advocates. Now, here are the Matcha Guardians. Licensed dietitian Diana Weil and medical journalist Elara Hadjibateras.
Hello. Welcome to this week's episode.
We are so excited for our guests this week because we have our husbands on the podcast. My husband, Peter, and Diana's husband, Harley. So mine is the bearded wonder. I'm not sure if he's below me, to my side, above me, but Peter has a beard. Harley, at least right now, has no beard and short hair.
And we prepped them not at all. So this is, they're just being put right on the spot.
So should we just get to it, Diana?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, good morning, ladies.
So if you're going to describe parenthood, jumping right into it, in one word, what's the word that comes to mind? Pete.
Yeah, I think I have to say responsibility. You get an overwhelming sense of responsibility, but I was happily surprised to see or to discover that with that responsibility, you kind of have this innate sense of focus that helps you get stuff done and level up your game in terms of work life, baby balance, and all that. So, yeah, responsibility and focus.
Doing more with less. I can definitely relate to that. What about you, Harley?
Cute. That's the one word that I can think of. He's just so cute. And I mean, there's a lot of diaper changes, but like those aren't even as bad as like I had expected. It's like fake poo and fake pee and fake throw up. It's like, doesn't even seem real.
Diana, have the oral examination started for you where when you're breastfeeding him, he sticks his fingers in your mouth or nose?
No. Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's going to, just you wait. That's fun. There's some term for it where basically it's their way of giving back to us for giving them our milk. They're just like, oh, thanks, Mom, for the milk. Here's my finger in your nose.
Oh, I love
like,
that.
This is for you. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's really nice. I feel like, okay, so for anyone who's maybe jumping in halfway through and doesn't know, Elara and I just had babies. So Peter entered daddydom 6 months ahead of Harley. And we are here to grill them on, this is a therapy session for Elara and I.
So just real quick, Peter, if you were going to be able to give yourself advice 6 months ago, i.e. give advice to Harley, like what would you say to him right now? What would you say to yourself looking back?
Yeah, other than buckle up, just to try and set the scene, get organized, pretty important. It's not a lot of time to get organized afterwards. And maybe do some sleep training on yourself. I don't know. Harley, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing is like the whole relationship dynamic changes because it's like just you and your partner, and all of a sudden it's like you and your partner and this other person, and this other person takes priority over everything. And so just like shifting out around and allowing that dynamic has got to challenge and hold that space for each other and being patient with each other because they're tending to your child's needs and not your needs right away.
I do feel like that patience has to come a lot from like you guys towards us, because I know like I'm tired and I'm breastfeeding, and so it's like a lot of demands on me. So I think that there's a lot more patience required from Harley. I don't have to give as much grace to Harley as Harley has to give to me right now, I think. Do you feel that way, Elara?
Yeah, completely. Especially, I think, as a breastfeeding mom, where there's just so much want and need and stimulation. Like, I'll never forget, it was like a month postpartum, and I'm breastfeeding Koa, and Peter comes behind me, you know, so loving, so nice, you know, trying to give me a little back massage. And I was like, get the fuck off me. I was like, do not touch me. I was like, I am overstimulated. It's not that I don't love you and I don't want your touch right now. It's just that there's so much being taken from me right now that I have nothing left to give. And it's, you know, it required him, I think, not taking a lot of things personally when I made it personal. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like poor Peter, especially for the first month or two when I had no idea what I was doing, instead of getting anxious, I get angry. And I directed that a lot towards Peter. And it's tough. I mean, he was a literal walking punching bag for me. And I am sorry for that, Pete.
Yeah, so I guess some advice I would give is get ready for some borderline emotional abuse, but it's coming from the best place, and get ready to immediately stand up the minute you sit down on the couch. That's Elara like always finds something for me to get, but it's great. And then I think after a few months, the doubting on one person becomes more of a balance, and you're just doubting on the baby, right? So
I think it shifted when I stopped breastfeeding at 6 months. It feels a bit more equal, where it's like there's everything I can do, Peter can also do, I would say. I mean, though Koa does prefer mom's cuddles over dad's cuddles, but he prefers to play with dad. So there's those things, but that's it.
So before we started this podcast, Laura, you brought up a good point that I think I kind of want to have them answer for the podcast. So your baby is 8 months and ours is 2 months right now. We're recording mid-August. So we're still in the 4th trimester, but you guys have left the 4th trimester. And there's so much emphasis on mamas in 4th trimester, how we're feeling, how we're doing, how our postpartum experience is. And you asked our husbands how they're feeling and how their 4th trimester experience is. So I want to have you guys answer for the podcast.
I mean, I just walked into the room and like, oh man, he's so cute. How did we get this thing? And like, the hurdles I managed to get through to get him was challenging. So out he's here and he's like just developing every day, something I do. Everyone says like it's really hard, which it is, but it's like in comparison to what you get, it's not that hard.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah. You tee up this question, you think that someone's going to start listing off like all the things that have been tough, right? All the difficulties. I was so tired, my back hurt. And that was just such a wonderful perspective, Harley. It's all about perspective, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and when Diana always says, like, it's easy to complain about the hard things, but it's hard to share about the joys of being a parent. Because when us are in it, like, it's hard to describe it.
That's so true.
What about for you?
yeah, now I regret asking Harley to go first. But I thought the beginning was extremely hard, and while obviously it's so great to like enjoy every moment, I think the minute the baby starts smiling, it gets exceptionally easier. A friend of mine joked that babies probably evolved to smile at like 2 months so that, like Spartan parents didn't throw them off a cliff, because it really like just erases all memory of the torture you might have gone through last night, or, the vomit you just experienced on your chest from them. So once he started smiling, yeah, it's just you walk in, so cute, and you'll do anything for him. So 4th trimester has been good. He's starting to move around more. So I think we feel it's a bit of a honeymoon period before full mobility and crawling. So soaking it in.
Yeah, I've heard from people that like that sweet spot of 7 to 9 months is really great because they're really perceptive, they're really engaged, they're really smiley, they're laughing. But to Peter's point, they're not on the move and we don't have to child-proof everything. It's not constantly staring at him. You can get away with putting him in the middle of the bed and, walking to the other side of the room and doing something. So I don't even know if you're going to have an answer to this, Harley, for my next question, but I know that Diana probably has some examples, but I would love for us to share some meltdown stories.
Oh, Harley has examples.
So I guess we could start there. So Harley, could you give me an example of a Diana meltdown story you think she hasn't shared with me?
Oh, so it's Diana melting down, or me melting down, or Elio melting down?
It can be yourself. It can be, you melting down, which I bet there's not even an example of that, or Diana melting down.
When we were back from the hospital and Diana had a C-section, so she was like completely immobile. I was doing everything, and I was like, ooh, me taking care of the baby and cleaning the house and cooking and doing everything. I'm like, that seems like a tall order. I think we need help. And Diana's like, we don't need help. I'm like, no, we need help.
Oh, and the dogs. You left out the
and
dogs.
the dogs,
And the
walking
cats.
dogs, our cats, and yeah. But Diana's meltdown happened just recently, yesterday. I don't have breasts, so I don't get a feed at night. It'd be really hard for me to do it, and so she's the one that takes that on, and so like it's a lot harder for her, and it has a toll on health and everything else. If you're not sleeping right, then everything else starts deteriorating, and when everything hits at once, that's when the meltdowns happen, and it's tricky. And then it also doesn't help too. And I mess up and I miss a schedule because like the scheduling, you have to be like on it with the scheduling.
Harley's being very generous here, but a couple days ago, I think my biggest meltdown was I was like, I don't think I'd eat and I was so tired and I was making like sandwiches for us. And Harley said something and I think I just like slammed the bread on the floor and left the house. It's like, I'm done. And I went for like a 20-minute walk. And then I came back and it was like all okay again.
That's great.
Yes, yeah. I didn't throw it at him. I just threw it at the ground.
What did I do? 2 days ago, Peter's doing bath time with Koa. He's just like in the bathtub. Koa's on front and like on top of him. And I come in and like, I'll put my hand up and say right now, I'm definitely the parent who is buying a lot of the toys and things for Koa that he probably doesn't need, but I cannot help myself. I'm buying him a bunch of stuff. So I have basically this bowl in our bathroom now that's just full of bath toys. So I just come in and Peter's enjoying bath time with Koa. So I come into the bath and there's just a bowl of all these toys and I just take it and I just throw all of them into the bathtub. So Koa's just like, oh my God, look at all these toys. And Peter looks at me and he goes, Elara, you're overstimulating him. We're going to give him ADHD. And it just sets me off. I'm like, you think I'm a bad parent? I've been parenting all day. You try parenting without like toys to go to every 5 minutes. Like he loses his attention. And I took a ball and it's like a bouncy ball and I threw it at Peter's face and it bounced off. It did not injure him.
I don't think anyone told me how quick you go to rage.
Very fast.
The rage comes on instant rage.
Mm-hmm. Like from joy to jubilation to just absolute annihilation very quickly.
Wait,
yeah.
Peter, can you please tell the story about Elara not bathing?
Not bathing? Which one?
When you were like, Elara, it doesn't count for you to just bathe with the baby.
Yeah. There was one point where I did a bath time and, you go into the bath with the baby and you're bathing him and then I come out and I go to get in bed and, things are different as far as the relationship, intimacy, and Peter kind of like, I don't know, gives me a sniff or something. He's like, Elara, it doesn't count. Like when you take a bath with Koa, that's his bath. Like you're not bathing yourself. You need to wash yourself.
Yeah, it's hectic in the beginning. You had trouble finding time. I get it.
And then I also had like this irrational belief that like he liked my natural scent. So I was like, Peter, he needs it. He needs mine.
I also, going back to the bath comment, I don't think there's any science behind too many toys leading to ADD, but it is incredible to watch how they'll just fixate on like a cardboard box. And that's 10 times more interesting than any of these toys you can buy. So we're trying to go the cardboard box route. I think self-made, homemade toys are pretty effective.
Peter, we didn't ask you about do you have any meltdown stories or can you share like a good one? Elara shared one of herself, but I'm sure that there's more. And I want to hear if you've had any meltdowns too.
Yeah, I think I melt down about the toys.
Yeah.
Not frequently, but
and the Amazon boxes. He does not like coming home to there being packages.
I think a funny meltdown, which hopefully has a decent message at the end, is we're on vacation with the grandparents, my parents, and Elara and I were asked to go to dinner with them, and the baby was 3 months old at this point. So we were sticking to a very strict bedtime routine, which is obviously important. And Elara did not want to go to dinner. Dinner was at 7. That was bedtime. We ultimately convinced her to take the baby to dinner. And within the first 10 minutes, the baby threw up all over her nice dress. And she had to run back to the room and change the baby and put him to bed. At which point I went back and tried to convince her to come to dinner and was received with a little bit of hostility, I would say.
Some words.
But I knew that ultimately she would really enjoy going to dinner. She had been with the baby for the past 4 days straight. And so I stayed with the baby and made her to go to dinner despite her consistently yelling at me. And in the end, I think that was a good thing. So don't let these sparks ignite a fight. I think it's pretty obvious sometimes when people are overtired and just support your partner and let them go to dinner.
And I think the other thing that's interesting is like, right, so getting projectile vomited on at dinner in a nice dress on the first vacation you've taken and basically over a year is a nightmare scenario, right? You just think this is worst case scenario. But then you realize it's not that big of a deal. And, now when I get thrown up on by him, not that it's as often as it used to be, I don't even bat an eyelash. Like, it's just funny how the perspective shifts. Like, the first time it happens, it's doomsday, it's horrible, oh my God. And then you just kind of are like, eh. So I guess it speaks to the point of advice I got before a parent that I was like, oh, I don't really know if this is true or not. Like, travel early with your baby, take your baby out, live your life like you normally do. Like, if you like going out to dinner, practice going out to dinner with your baby. Those things are going to happen, and it's better they happen early, because then you kind of you don't even sweat it. Like, we had a flight to Hawaii, which was almost 11 hours. So flight takes off. Koa starts kind of crying a little bit. My mom's like, give him the pacifier, Elara. Koa doesn't like the pacifier, for the record. Stick the pacifier in his mouth, immediately pops it out, projectile vomits, formula all over my legs. I brought him a change of clothes for the flight, not me. So I just spent the rest of the flight smelling like vomit, and I couldn't care less. It was no big deal.
I think Peter and I are both a little bit more people pleasers, and Harley and Elara are a little bit more like, I'm gonna do what I need to do, and other people can deal with it. And I love the fact, I was talking to Elara about are you so scared to bring Koa on an 11-hour flight? And she was like, no, because if he cries, who cares? I don't care if people are pissed. Whereas I think that's Peter and I's worst nightmare.
Literally my worst nightmare. Yeah, I was terrified.
Peter wasn't on the flight. He conveniently had to change for a work dinner and rebook to the next day. So I had the joy of flying alone for 11 hours with our 5-month-old.
I joined the return flight, and it was a miracle. He slept the entire time.
In my seat.
Your brain just builds things up to be so much more intimidating than they are. And then you realize ultimately the baby loves to do what you're doing, and he's probably more entertained following you around on activities than you just trying to entertain him. So that's a nice discovery.
One thing I hate is the good baby, bad baby conversations, because I'm he's not a bad baby if he cries. He's just in pain, or, something's going on for him, or he's not a good baby because he slept. It's just he was ready to sleep through the night. And I don't know. I was thinking about it's not a bad baby if they cry on the plane. They're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I know that it's something that I need to get over of I don't really care if I piss people off. I mean, I do. I very much so care, but I'm trying to not let that stop us from doing things.
I mean, we took supposedly it was a 6-hour drive. It ended up being 9 hours because with stops and changes, breastfeeding and everything. But I mean, it does take longer. That's for sure.
Everything takes longer. But I just remember at first being terrified and being so stressed the first couple car rides we took with the baby. The first doctor's appointment you have, I think it's the week after you bring the baby home from the hospital. We were just on the Amazing Race, just going crazy outside of the house, and looking back, I'm that should have been probably a very relaxing experience. We probably were so jacked up that made Koa jacked up and not enjoy the ride. And he loves being in the car now.
So I kind of want to roll back to birth and delivery, because Elara and I were both C-section moms, which was for us not anticipated. And I know for Elara, yours was scheduled, so you guys knew what you were going into. But I do feel like C-section is different for the dads, because you guys were the first ones to hold the babies, whereas usually it's the moms. And I'm curious, I want to hear just the birth from your experience. And was that meaningful for you guys? Did you like that you were the first ones to hold the baby, or was it stressful because you knew that we were give us the baby?
It was stressful. Yeah, I think it was stressful because Elara had her mindset on a natural birth, and I didn't want her to be let down, but I also knew deep down that once the baby came out, she would totally forget about all that and not care, so it was great to hold the baby, but I was really excited to pass him over and enjoy the moment with Elara, because I knew how important it was. And yeah, I think that the whole C-section versus natural birth thing is so built up, and I think with the social media and stuff, it's kind of overhyped, but in the end, they're both very, very good ways to deliver a baby, and you have a healthy baby. That's all that matters. So we were really happy afterwards. Yeah.
And what about recovery wise? Because I mean, it's an intense recovery. There's maybe potentially, depending on the process, it could be more on the dads work-wise because we can't really get out of bed or it's difficult to hold the baby and stuff. Did you find that to be the case?
Yeah. And I think Elara came back a little too quickly. So then the recovery maybe took even longer, but you have to be that supportive husband for a little bit longer, I guess, than the other way around. But it's great. And you healed well, Laura.
Yeah, well, I did kind of overdo it too soon in the beginning after a couple weeks. And I ended up almost reopening some of my sutures up. So then instead of them being pretty healed after 6 to 8 weeks, I think I was closer to 10 to 12.
Yeah. So the toughest part was like you not being able to get active yourself again, because I think that's important for your balance. And with the lack of sleep and inactivity, get a bit stir crazy. So I think that was the biggest.
It's pretty wild watching the whole phase.
Did you look over the curtain?
Oh yeah.
I didn't. I was too nervous. I was nervous that like they were going to see me peeking over and mess up or something, which is totally irrational. But
they hiked the curtain up pretty high, and then as they were working, like the curtain had like slid down a little bit, so I could just like peer around the corner. So
Harley and I have a level of intimacy that's like he's seen my intestines.
Wow, lucky man.
That's close.
He can never leave me.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And actually, Diane, you actually got to hold on first. I did not get to hold him. I was just with him and like trying to hold his hand and that kind of stuff and like touch him and stuff. But you were the first to hold him. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we used hooked up to the CPAP and they're doing all the tests and all that stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I think we snipped the umbilical cord and then we passed back. So yeah, Laura, you did hold first as well.
No, I didn't. You because remember they took him to that warming weird table that like has a bright light and measures him, and then you were just holding him and he was just screaming and I was laying like Jesus with my arms out.
Were they like levitating and
They were like this, and I was like, they had put some morphine in my drip and I was just like, woo! I was in no condition to hold a baby. Peter like held him and kind of like nuzzled him next to me, and then they brought me out of the ER into a recovery room, and then they put him on top of me, and then he latched and all that jazz.
Kind of a wild process.
Wild, yeah. So wild is, for the record, the word I always used to describe just birth, postpartum. It's just a wild ride, all of it. It's just absolutely wild. So I would love to hear from you guys. What is a piece of advice that you heard from someone before you became a dad?
I don't know. Somebody just gave me the talk and was like, listen, your life won't change that much. Like you'll figure out the balance. And that sort of just something clicked and made me much more relaxed about the whole thing.
It was Marilena, and the way she said it, the way she put it was like, oh, Elara's life is going to change. Yours, basically the same.
Elara, do you feel resentful of that? Because that's something that I've been like, my entire world is different. And like kind of for Harley, like, yes, it's different, but it's not the extreme that it is for me. And sometimes I get resentful of that. Do you feel that way?
I think there are moments like the moments when, say, Peter wakes up in the morning and can spontaneously say, I'm going to go to a CrossFit class at 7 a.m. I'm like, well, I wish I could do that, but I can't. But I have to say, there's been a shift the last 2-3 months where the closet parted and Peter will be like, Elara, come in here. You got to see this. And he'll be like, look at him, like playing with the knob. I'm like, yeah, I've seen that 6 times. I'm with him all day. And then it's in those moments when I'm like, you see all these little things, right, that are just so amazing. And then I see Peter kind of come and he'll have not maybe seen it over the last couple of days because he's not home every second with him the way I am. And he's so mesmerized by what he's doing. And then it just kind of fills me up and makes my cup overpour with pride and happiness. And there's zero resentment whatsoever. And I just feel so lucky that I'm able to work from home and be around him and be here for all those moments.
That's sweet. I like that. I know Harley had about, I think, 7 weeks off for paternity leave, whereas I know, Peter, you didn't get quite as much time. So how was it going back to work? That's, I think, can be tough. I think one of the things that's been, when Harley can say that, like, it's not that, it hasn't been that hard. I think, one, we have an easy baby, just like, he's pretty easy. And also we had a lot of time together where it was both of us, and we're just sort of now getting back into the real world. So I think that, like, things are getting harder now that he's back at work. And you guys kind of jumped back into that pretty early.
well, Harley's a saint, so it's tough to compare us.
Peter, just be truthful. No one's going to judge you.
But yeah, honestly, I was like really ready to get back to work because I feel at the beginning there like wasn't enough for me to do. So I was just sitting around like stressing. And then if I was working from home, I'd be stressed that I wasn't doing enough to support Elara and the baby. Yeah, especially if your wife's breastfeeding, there's like, you can't fill out your whole day. You're kind of just like there stressed and trying to be supportive. So I was ready to go back. But then once the baby starts moving a little bit more and you don't feel like you're going to break its neck every time you pick him up, I feel like there's more that the husbands can do. And then I limited my hours and all that. And so, yeah, I think paternity leave would be great, like 3 to 6 months in, ideally.
Is there any part of you that wants to be a stay-at-home dad?
Oh, yeah, especially now that he's getting mobile. I mean, I would love it. So I think in Norway and Denmark, you have paternity leave out until 12 or even 24 months in Norway. So that's pretty cool. You can take 2 months when he's a year or two. And
Do you know if that's paid or unpaid?
paid.
It's paid.
Yeah, the maternity leave in Scandinavia is ridiculous.
Well, they require you have to take off the 2 weeks right after the birth. And then as soon as you can go back to work is after those 2 weeks. And then I think it's even up to several years, like that the child's old. Like you could end up taking some of your paternity leave when your child's 4 years old.
I believe Norway is up to 3 or 4, but Denmark
3 or
is
4.
like one and a half.
Wow. Harley, would you have wanted to adjust? Like, would you have rather taken off now until, or, a little bit later? And do you feel like it was too long? Like, were you ready to get back?
Be honest.
Yep, yeah.
Towards the end, I was ready to get back. I mean, we were fortunate. Like, I took a long paternity leave, but also was unpaid. So my mindset through that period was just like, Diana's not getting a lot of sleep because she's up all night. So I'm going to just make it as easy as possible for her. Like, I'm changing almost every diaper during the day that I'm up, so that she doesn't have to worry about it. She just like gets to chill, heal, relax, and I'm just changing the diapers and I was like basically her manservant, or trying to be. I don't know how successful I was at that.
Harley brought me a lot of water bottles.
I became best friends with my Stanley Cup.
Having that mindset of like, oh, I'm just like the servant here, then like it was a little bit harder for me to get forward, I guess, just having like that mindset. But it gets repetitive, after you've changed like the 16th diaper of the day and you're working pretty quick, At first, like the first diaper is so slow, they're crying, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, like the last one, like you just stopwatch, you're like, done in 15 seconds. Like,
it becomes one of the most satisfying things you do as a parent because you're like, I can do this. I can change a diaper. Like, it will be better after I do this simple activity.
Yeah. So was I ready to go back? Yeah, I felt like I was ready to go back to work when it was. And I don't know, like in the future, maybe I'll be like, well, maybe I should have spent more time later on when they're toddlers and they're a little bit harder and they're wandering around versus like when they're just sleeping. And I felt like in that time, though, I got to bond quite a bit, which was fortunate.
And to be fair, too, you were also like working out and going on dog walks and doing jujitsu. So it wasn't just like you also had your own time and,
You weren't just stuck at the house,
Yeah.
like as a milk machine. All right, so this is a fun topic we got to get into, guys. Peter's going to squirm because
I'm
he's a very
excited.
private person. You know where I'm going, Dana. Intimacy after baby. When was the first time you guys were intimate after the baby? Have you been intimate? It's been 2 months out.
Well, I took your advice, actually. I think I texted you and I was like, Elara, when this feels scary, what do we do?
And I said, do it.
Yeah. So I think
So that's the girl who opened her stitches, right, doing it. But
So we broke rules and we did it.
we did it. Yeah, we did it 3 weeks. 3 weeks postpartum. Keeping in mind, right, I was a scheduled C-section. There was nothing as far as like dilation that had happened. I had 0 contractions. It was definitely more painful than it had been in the past. And then it got probably, I'd say, like more regular after 1 or 2 months. But let's hear from Peter. What was it like for Peter?
Yeah, it's scary. Got to be careful with you after this big major procedure, right? So, yeah, you're happy to wait, I think. until everything's healed up. At least that's how I felt.
We waited 4 weeks and it wasn't great. Didn't love it.
Do you do any co-sleeping with him at this point? He's still really young.
Yeah, I give up around like 4:35 and I bring him into bed. And I like kick off all the pillows and I move Harley over and I'm like, baby's in the bed. And then I just put him in my arm. But I try to keep him in his bassinet until about 5 a.m. It's mostly that I don't sleep as well if he's in the bed. So yeah, but around 5 a.m. I bring him in. And at first I was actually more comfortable with Harley holding him. I was so nervous to co-sleep because I was like, if anything happens to him, I would die. That's how it felt. I actually felt more comfortable with Harley co-sleeping, and now I only feel comfortable with me co-sleeping. What about you guys?
We've been co-sleeping for a while with him. Well, we there's some nights where we put him in the crib, or he'll start out in the crib, and then we'll bring him to the bed. But he, by far and none, sleeps the best in the bed.
With you guys, yeah.
In the beginning, we were really scared to do it, obviously, because they're so fragile, and you just hear the horror stories. So we didn't do it until like a month and a half or 2 months.
I think it was honestly 3 months in, and we were so neurotic about like baby on back, only on the back, only sleep on the back.
To turn it around and ask both of you a question, I think this bassinet and the baby sleeping in a separate room is a very Western thing. And in India and a lot of Eastern cultures, co-sleeping is extremely accepted and the norm. And people do it until the babies are like 5 or older, sleeping in the same room. Do you think there's a better way? I mean, which way is better? Which culture has it right, or does it not affect the baby's development? I haven't read much about it, but it's intriguing and makes me think. It makes me want to co-sleep more when you hear these theories.
Harley and I both had "Where's my baby" dreams. I don't know if you guys had those, but we would wake up in the middle of the night, like frantically searching for Elio in the bed, like patting the pillows, being like, where is he? I know that he's here somewhere and I can't find him. I just feel like co-sleeping is so natural.
Yeah.
Especially because when he was away, like separated from me and in his own sleeping space, I would wake up frantic of like, where is he? I also feel like for sure he sleeps better when he doesn't want to be separated from us either. So I feel like we kind of have it wrong. And at the same time, I know that I get better sleep because I get anxious about him. Like if anything happened or, all that kind of stuff. Harley, what do you think? I'm curious. I want to hear your answer too.
I think it's more natural to co-sleep. It sounds nice. My aunt co-slept with my cousin, and she was explaining it to me, and she made it sound so nice. It's just like you sleep on that, they cry, you just roll over and breastfeed them. I know it goes everywhere. You just fall asleep again. And she's like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. She's also Chilean too, so it's like...
It feels unnatural to kind of just be like, put my baby away from me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, probably is unnatural, right?
Well, the difference between his attitude when we put him down in the crib versus when we put him down in the bed is night and day. I put him down in the crib and he's kind of like slight panic induced, like, where are you putting me? Especially if I do that thing where it's like drowsy, but awake. Once again, a whole nother podcast episode as far as like sleep training, baby sleep. So you put them in drowsy or awake, and as soon as I put him down, he realizes he's not in my arms, freaks out. I bring him into our bedroom, and the minute he hits the bed, he's like, woo, like making all these noises. He's having a great time. It's like he's throwing a party before bed. He's thrilled. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want bedtime to have like a positive association? Why wouldn't I want this to be the best time of day versus like, why do I want it to feel like pulling teeth for an hour where he's miserable, I'm miserable, or we could both be really happy for 15 minutes and then just let him go to sleep like that. But I just want to address, I think, why a lot of people are also against co-sleeping is A, they're worried about rolling over on the baby. But I think the second biggest concern is it impacting a couple's intimacy. And to that point, I think that doesn't have to be the case. Like you make room for each other outside the bedroom, right? Like you can be intimate outside of your bedroom. And I think it's just about, being more comfortable in that way. You just gotta have to be able to do things on the fly and a little bit more quickly. There's a little bit more of an efficiency aspect.
Yeah, it's tough. There is a balance of like wanting to protect the relationship. And I think even though it's difficult, what sort of needs to come first is the marriage, because the marriage, a good, healthy marriage is best for the baby. And also, I want my baby with me at all times. So there's this balance of like making time for Harley and I, and also, that our marriage has to be a priority and having our baby with
Have
us.
you done the thing where you've had sex in front of the baby yet?
Yeah, and I feel weird about it.
Wait until you get to the point where you're having sex in front of the baby and they're awake and they like touch your hand and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, what is this? Like,
Laura, you're talking like
As-
that. That's never happened. That would not happen. It's extremely uncomfortable.
So you said that you keep waking up, like, you're still uncomfortable if they slept in the bed and you don't think you get good enough sleep. But do you think that's because of just all the warnings and I don't want to say fear tactics because they're somewhat valid, but of like all the fear around co-sleeping? Like if that wasn't there, it was just like the standard thing you do, you just think you'd be able to sleep better at night.
Yeah, probably for sure. I think so. I mean, I think if he was close to me, I would probably sleep better. But also, I do kind of feel like stuck in one position with him, and I don't feel like I can move around. So I actually think I do would just sleep better without him because I like curl around him. You know, I create a little shield.
Yeah.
Do you guys sleep? Have you guys slept in separate bedrooms so one of you can get a full night's sleep? Because I think sometimes that can be taboo, but it also could be very important.
we did that last night, except so we're dealing with our dog. He just got neutered and now he's bladder stone. So I stayed in the living room with him to make sure he was okay to bring him out to the bathroom. And Peter stayed in the bedroom with Koa. And then I don't know what time it was, P, like 3 a.m. We ended up swapping. Like Peter came out, then it was all 3 of us kind of on the couch together. And then Peter left and then I stayed with Koa on the couch. And he took the dog.
Yeah, which I feel like is great. I'm like, I don't understand the concept of if I'm suffering, I'm also going to make my partner suffer, you know? So like when I get up in the middle of the night, I'm like, Harley, please keep sleeping. Or, you know, I think that like if you guys are going through a really tough sleep stretch, it makes sense that, you know, Peter sleeps in a different bedroom so that he can get a full night's sleep, especially if you're working. Like, I don't really understand that. I see it a lot on social media too, where it's like my husband takes a 6-hour stretch and then I take, I mean, and I do think it's different if you're breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, but I just like don't understand the concept of like, let's both wake up and do this together.
Yeah, it's not sustainable either. Inevitably, one person will crash.
And then they throw bread in the ground or a ball at your face.
Or a ball at your face. Yeah.
Okay. Any last burning questions? Any other like taboo things you guys want to cover?
I do have a question for you guys. What did you find most difficult about maintaining your health? Fitness, emotional, physical health after having a kid? Like, what's the hardest thing to maintain and what's the easiest?
I think one, it's hard to just find time to work out, which is really like I've had to do more walking, which isn't necessarily like walking is amazing. And I think it is a fabulous way to exercise, but I would rather do like a harder, higher impact workout. And I just don't have time for that because I can't just go to a class. You know, I that just isn't always an option. And then there are times when I'm so hungry and I just like can't put him down to feed myself, or what I need to eat is something that's like really quick and on the fly. And I can't be like, okay, let me make myself this really nice meal.
Yeah. No, I'd say that just perpetually, yeah, if you're breastfeeding and you're hungry, and then if you're not eating enough, you're hangry, and then it just snowballs. So for me, it's just been my emotional regulation. Like I'm not normally the type of person who's so like flip the switch, you know, happy, angry, in a good mood, kind of taking out my negative energy like on, you know, Peter or whoever might be around me. It's just, I'm usually pretty balanced. So that's been a challenge for me. And I think, you know, a lot of it has to do with obviously hormones, sleep deprivation, diet, all these things, right? Like not working out, to Peter's point. And I'm just, I think, getting to a point where I'm feeling like 80% of the time, like more balanced, but still that 20% where I fall into just kind of the like, I just feel like I'm in a tornado and it's not a great feeling and just like not in full control of myself. And the forgetfulness, I just feel very stupid. I feel like a dumb version of myself. And that has been really challenging. I walk into rooms all the time and I forget why I walked in. I say I'm going to write something down. I tell Peter I'm going to do something and I forget. And I've always been a pretty on point person and I'm not anymore. I don't know if it's going to come back, but that's been a little scary to deal with as far as my health. I'm almost like, do I need to get a memory test?
Yeah, I'm dumb. I'm dumb right now.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Dumb Elara. Dumb Diana.
Yeah.
pregnancy brain.
We done together. Peter, what about you?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it was difficult to find time for yourself away from the baby. You almost build it up to be more difficult than it is. And I don't want to speak for either one of you because we both know it's more difficult for both of you. But I think also I felt this, and I think I saw it in Elara where her mom was staying with us for a little while and is now. And like, you can give the baby your mom, but in the beginning, like, you don't, that's just like not an option in your head, right? You're like, no, like, I'm not going to leave the baby for that hour. Like, your mind like builds it up into this thing that's, you can't do it. And I just found it took like, a month or two to get over that and realize that sometimes it's good to just hand them over to someone else, go do your thing, come back, be more focused, and put in the quality rather than just the quantity.
Harley, you got to answer too.
I think Diana's made it really easy for me to work out, and she's been a big proponent of that. Like, oh yeah, go work out right now, go do this right now, get out of the house, do stuff. And then she's also been really like, if I don't get enough sleep, like, I get canker sores in my mouth, and it's just like my health starts to dwindle, and like, I'm cranky, and so there's like, her letting me sleep has been like really great. So it's like the fact that I'm as healthy as I am is due to Diana and what she's willing to sacrifice. And so it's almost like I feel bad at times because I'm like, oh, I'm feeling great. This is great. But it's like she's allowing me to do that. So I guess thanks for letting me be healthy, and I can hopefully be healthy enough to cheer you on.
I got to take care of Harley so that Harley can take care of me. That's the like give and take.
That is, yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't know. Well, Peter, you don't know this, I think, because you have not listened to too many of the episodes. But at the end of each episode, we like to ask our guests 2 questions. Dana, do you want to sling the first question?
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your guys' answer. What is a life lesson that you have had to learn the hard way?
The most important life lesson I've learned recently the hard way is that you have to shake the bottle after you put in the formula and the water.
What happens if you don't?
And if you don't, the baby almost inevitably throws up, or there's a big powder mustache on his mouth, and you have to go do it all over again. So learned that one a few days ago.
Harley, what about you?
Boundaries.
Oh, expand, please.
I feel like boundaries are much hard for me. I think it's genetic because my mom actually struggles with boundaries, so something that I just don't get through.
Do you feel like having a baby is made? I feel like having a baby, you have to have like very like boundaries become more important.
Yeah, definitely babies make you. I don't know. Babies also give you a great excuse to set up a boundary. It's harder if you don't have an excuse to set up a boundary. So,
much deeper lesson learned than mine.
So the second question we like to ask is, what is a mantra right now that maybe you say to yourself to psych yourself up? Peter, maybe when I'm giving you an especially hard time, right? This is the thing that when you go into the bathroom and you look yourself in the mirror, this is what comes to mind to kind of keep you going through.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I always tell myself that Koa's watching. Our son's name's Koa. So yeah, like if I'm ever getting lazy at work or at the gym, I'll just be like, just imagine him in the corner, like watching you intently, everything you're doing, and keeps me pretty focused and motivated.
Oh, that's a sweet one. Watching, yeah, you want to be a good role model for your son.
Yeah,
be the person he thinks you are.
Yeah, and it's really effective if you just say it out loud or in your head.
What about you, Harley?
Everything's short term. Nothing lasts forever. And everything's in a season, so it's like everything's going to end at one point or another. So you just have to stick to it. 10 more seconds, 1 more day. You can do anything for 7 days,
That's a really good one.
This is cliche, but around the same lines, I think everybody before you have a baby says enjoy every moment of it. And I think you really feel that when you're in it. And even the most torturous moment, you just have to remember that that's going to pass. And in a year, you'll probably be like wishing you could go back to that time and be up all night with the baby and have him, torturing you. So it's, not like saying I can't wait for this, but enjoying the moment has been great. Good advice for me.
Yeah, it's important. It goes by fast. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I know that we kind of put you in the hot seat here and you both did amazing and we love you so much. And thank you for letting us throw things at you temporarily while we're losing our minds.
We love you guys. Listeners, if there's any other questions or topics you think would be fun to hear from Harley and Peter about, let us know and we can bring them back on for another episode.
We'll see you next time.
Sip, savor, and live well with new episodes of the Matcha Guardians every Wednesday. Follow our show for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. Leave your questions and comments below. Find us on Instagram at The Matcha Guardians or click on matcha.com.